Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Thank you for joining us. Today, our special guest is Derek Harms. Derek is an investor and realtor, and he owns the Derek Harms Group. Derek is well respected within the industry, not only for his high ethical standards, but for conducting his business honestly and morally while doing absolutely everything in his power to ensure his client's success. And a Los Angeles native and a longtime San Diegoan, Derek thoroughly understands what California living is all about, having graduated from Sonoma State University while playing on the World Series baseball team. Derek implemented the humility and selfishness learned from years of being an athlete into the real estate practice. In-depth local market knowledge and innovative marketing techniques aside, Derek also possesses an advanced set of negotiating skills demonstrated by a designation associated with less than 1% of the realtors nationwide, Master Certified Negotiation Expert. An active investor and award-winning realtor, Derek is connected in many different facets of the real estate industry. He purchased his first investment property in 2010 for $22,500 and since has owned and been involved in flipping houses, mobile home parks, apartment buildings, syndications, development, property management, lending, and creative financing. He currently spends most of his time managing his properties. We buy San Diego cumulatively, focusing on single family and multifamily, renovation, sales, and rentals in San Diego County. Derek joined NSDREI Board of Realtors in 2014 and has served as president since 2019. Derek currently lives in Point Loma. And when he's not enveloped in real estate, you're most likely to find him enjoying all kinds of outdoor activities. And he just got married. Welcome to our show, Derek.
Bruce, it's always a pleasure. That's for sure. I don't see you as much as I used to, but the times I do get, I cherish.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, it's some of my most exciting nights have been with you doing the Q&A. It's been a lot of fun in front of the audience in San Diego, and a lot of times it's been at kind of crucial times where the market's switching. So, Derek, tell me a little bit about your journey as an adult, even, okay? Because we just talked about you just got married, or excuse me, getting engaged. I'm sorry, got engaged. And so, what was your young adult? I know you played some baseball, so take me through that journey of being an athlete, and then how did you land on the square of real estate?
Definitely a long, broken road that ended up at my current destination, but that's half the fun. And yeah, so actually I did get married actually this past weekend. I got engaged.
Oh, you did? Okay. I knew you got engaged. I didn't you got married. Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We had a beautiful wedding and it was just incredible. And it's Thursday and that was on Saturday, and the dust is now just starting to settle and the fog lifting from, family and fun and, just a bunch of planning. But anyway, we're feeling good and happy. And so thank you. Actually, you got to meet Brooke at the anniversary party dinner in last June at the NSDREI anniversary dinner. So that was Brooke. You may or may not remember her, but it was a beautiful little blonde girl.
How long have you known each other?
Not that long, Bruce. Like coming up on a year and a half, and I knew when I knew, and so did she. And I proposed to her after knowing her for about 10 months.
Okay. Well, yeah. I completely agree with that philosophy. When you know, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's it doesn't come along. But so when you recognize, you go, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think just, without getting too deep into it, over the years, I think I learned more what I didn't want, and which really illuminated what I did want once it was there in front of me. It was just like clear as day. So it was really, I'm blessed. I have a very, very amazing woman by my side now forever.
very
Um,
cool.
and
Very, very
so yeah,
cool.
anyway, got married this weekend, but backtracking to kind of the elevator pitch as to how I landed where I am now and how I got into the industry. Yes, I played college baseball and I was good. I wasn't great. And in order to be, a professional baseball player, which is always what I wanted to be since I was a kid, you have to be great. You have to be
Right.
elite. You have to be, top fraction of a percentage. And luckily, back in high school, my high school coach sat us all down and broke down the numbers, which I thought was kind of cool. It was like, hey, here's the reality. Most of you guys are going to grow up to become professionals in a sport and something else other than a sport. And he broke it down. It was like some fraction of a fraction of a percent of people ever even get a chance to sniff the big leagues. And that always resonated with me. I got through college, played college baseball. We played in a college World Series. And at the end of it, I kind of was like, all right, I have some friends of mine that I've seen go through this and get kind of stuck in minor league purgatory for a long time, and you make no money, and then you're 10 years behind schedule on starting a career. And I didn't want to do
Right.
that.
Right.
And so, I said, all right, let's just go figure out how to make some money. I had no answers at the time. I graduated college and actually moved back in with my dad for a brief period of time to make some money. I got a job bartending, but funny enough, this bartending thing opened a door for me. So I ended up, while I was bartending, taking a bunch of weekend seminars, going to see some of the guys like we talked about, like A.D. Kessler. I went to a Bill Bartman training. That name's not really ringing bells, but he taught about buying bad debt, delinquent debt. And I actually started an LLC and bought a tape of debt, and I lost $10,000, and that's all the money I had at the time, trying to do this,
Oh, oh, goodness
but
gracious.
but you know what? At least I was being entrepreneurial, and I knew there was more out there than bartending, and I was looking for a path. And even though that wasn't the right one, it still kind of wet the whistle a little bit to keep going. And so I started taking other weekend seminars, and ended up taking a Tony Alvarez REO mentor seminar, and that was back in 2010. And I got really lucky on the timing, and I did it on the weekend, and by the next week I was out there pounding the phones based off of his script. And a bunch of agents that I called all told me to kick rocks, and I'll never forget it. One specifically said to me, hey, you sound like you're some kid that's reading a script. And I said, I am. And this is a script. I just learned it last weekend, but hey, at least I'm out doing it. But over a few weeks, finally, I got one receptive agent, and she was very sweet. And she's like, hey, I just got this listing in Barstow. It comes on the market in a few days. You want to come look at it? And it was a 2-unit property in Barstow, and I ended up buying it for $22,500. And that was it. That was my in. That was what I needed. I didn't have 22,500, but my dad did.
Okay.
And my dad had owned some properties over the years, so he recognized that, hey, look, I don't know how you really lose if you buy 2 units for 22,500. So he lent me the money to buy it. And, from there I bought it, and I would drive 3 hours from Ventura to Barstow every morning to go and work on the thing and, sweat equity while I would drive home in the evening and bartend. And I did that for a few months until I got the thing rent ready, put a few tenants in it. Put a couple tenants in. It was a duplex. Learned how to be a landlord for a little while. And after a few months of that, this is where I'm landing the plane on the bartending thing. So a guy that was a regular at my bar had come in, and we'd always talk a little business. I told him I was getting into the real estate thing, or I was interested into it. And he ended up being like, hey, I'm looking for another investment here. And do you have anything? And I said, well, actually, I do. I have a car stove that I'm selling for the great price of $52,500. Would you like it? And so it was a 30% spread over what I bought it for, minus the money I put into it. I made like 20 something $1,000. And at the time, that was like an annual salary for bartending. So that was what I needed. I needed that catapult, that amount of money, the cash, to realize like, hey, this can work. And then from there, I started buying other properties and getting into different little niches, which we can get into if you like. But that was like how I got started. And it's just so important when I talk to people who are in a similar space or they're coming out of college or whatever. It's like, hey, just, don't worry. There's a path. There's a door that will open at some point. You just got to keep doing stuff. Go out and take action and something will happen.
As always happens, whenever I do an interview, you write down questions, and the second question is never the second question because I listen to your answers. So first thing, you losing money on your first attempt and you still trying tells a lot about you. It really does. Because most people touch something, lose money, and okay, well, that's that. So I wanted to know, how did sports impact who you became?
I think a couple things. I always wanted to be better, and I wanted to be elite, and I wanted to have excellence in baseball. So I think that mentality definitely carried over. Like, I'm very disciplined, and in order to be good at a sport, you have to be disciplined. There are those few psychos that are just born with more talent than anyone else in the world that don't have to practice. But at some point, that'll catch up to you, especially as you age. But for the most part, like, the discipline level is I think what I took over the most. And then maybe secondly was the team sport aspect, because real estate is a team sport by far and large. And initially I didn't quite understand that. But now, as I've been doing this and, hundreds of deals later, I could not be where I'm at without my team. I mean, I depend on them every single day. So for me, I think it's discipline and camaraderie and having a team lens you're looking through.
Tell me about your team. You're talking about people that do the whole gamut, refer you properties, repair your properties, manage your properties. Is that part of the whole team now?
Yeah, so I feel like I have like a small knit internal team, and then I have like kind of levels of people I call my team. And I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening in on audio, not video. So I have, a full-time assistant, and her name is Lawrence, and I could not be more proud of her and happy for her, like the way we met. I'll explain that in a second, because again, these things just line up. It's really cool how when you just take action, things happen. But she's my full-time assistant. She's amazing. I have an acquisitions director. His name is Drew. He's out there looking for deals, and he's answering our phone calls from our inbound marketing. We do a lot of direct mail and other types of marketing. And so when the phone rings, I used to answer the phone, and now Drew does that. And so those are like my two team members, right? Lawrence is a W-2 employee and Drew is 1099. But then outside of that, where I have more very integral, critical team roles is my contractors. I've got one main contractor that I've used for many years. Trust him, and we can essentially finish each other's sentences. And I know his numbers almost better than he does now. Like, I'll go walk a property and I'll essentially send him the bid, and he'll just look through it and we'll be like, okay, yeah, that's right. Oh, I have some adjustments here. But for the most part, we're completely linear. And then, from there, it extends out all the way. Yes. My property managers, who manages our rentals, to our escrow officer, which is probably one of the most critical parts, especially when you're doing off-market transactions. You get a skittish seller, right? You get a homeowner who sees a lot of scams and things on the internet, and the escrow officer can be that voice of calm and peace that really is the glue that keeps the deal together and makes somebody feel comfortable selling a property to you. And this extends much further outward, Bruce. Like, I could go on for like how many people I would consider my team, real estate agents that bring us deals constantly, or just confidants that I reach out to regularly. I'm on text threads with a bunch of developers here in town who are just so much smarter than I am in that space, and I pick their brain regularly. But so yeah, that's my core team. And the assistant thing I want to mention really quick because I think this may happen for a lot of people, right? So I didn't know what I didn't know. This was maybe 8 years ago, and I took Mike Cantu's "Don't Get Voted Off Real Estate Island," and I'm like, hey, I really like this direct mail thing. I'm going to give this a try, and I started doing it on my own. And I had my full desk full of white and red, white, and blue envelopes, and I was handwriting these things. And I'm like, geez, I can't do this at scale. Like this is, this is going to take me forever. And so I ended up asking our office manager who like managed the front desk at the office space I had rented, like, hey, do you know anyone who would want to help handwrite some of these things and put the little return address and on it? And she said, well, how much you paying? And I was like, I forgot how much it was, but it was like not much. It was like 25 cents an envelope or 10 cents. I don't remember, but she was like,
Okay.
she was like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, wow, okay, this is great. And she's like, when do you want them? And I'm like, all right. So Mike says we got to have them in the mail by Friday. So they arrive on a Tuesday. So I need them by Friday. And anyway, that was the beginning of this amazing relationship where after she started doing that for a while, I'm like, wow, I got to keep her. She's incredible. And ended up at the time not having the money, but was like, hey, I need to hire you full time. I know you'll add value. And I can see this blossoming. And at the first year was maybe a little tough.
What year was that?
I think that was maybe 2016. That was her first year with me. I think that was it. And I was still getting my wings. And it might have been a little later. I'm getting fuzzy on the year, but I was still getting my wings underneath me in the investment space here in San Diego. And it was a commitment at the time. At the time, I had a partner as well, and then we kind of went and did our own thing. But I kept Lawrence, and I just she's and now. I couldn't see my business without her. She has retirement plan now and healthcare and all this stuff, and it's I'm happy to do it because she is the reason I can go out and do what I can do.
That's fantastic. I love that you. Well, it's very interesting that you were successful making a transition. So Tony Alvarez taught you what he knew, and that's how to deal with agents and buy REOs, right? So, but that was the time frame that you kind of came into the business. There was a lot of that going on, say from 2008 to 2012. That was a dominant product. But after that, the market changed. So by 2016, there's no REOs. And so you got to dream up a whole new skill set. And that's what you did. You took another guy who's very successful, not as much as REOs, but in all the day-to-day mailings. And, he's bought probably more properties directly from people than anybody I know. And Mike Cantu. By the way, do they both know they've been a part of your success?
Absolutely. I talk to them both regularly. It's come, I don't think he would mind me saying this, but it's come full circle with Tony. He's now a part of some of my deals here in San Diego. And I remember shedding a tear the moment we closed on that first one. And I get a little emotional about it now because it was just this this amazing, cycle, right? I started at this doughy eyed kid at his event, and come a decade later, and I've got a beautiful house and real estate portfolio, and now Tony's a part of my deals. Feels confident in me enough to do that. It really makes me feel really good.
Very cool. Now he and I just spoke
yes.
in San Diego together, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was at the White Feather with Buddy and
with Buddy Rushing. Yep. Yeah, Tony. I called him up. I said, "If you join me, I'll do it. Let's do it." So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I wasn't getting married this past weekend. Tony texted me. He's like, "Hey, are you around?" I would have loved to have gone and hung out, but I had other things I had to take care of.
Yeah, we got Tony to speak for the first time he ever spoke was at an event of ours, and I just knew he was going to light it up. He wasn't really sure, but I said no, no, you're gonna change people's lives tonight. So that's very cool. My best memory is people lining up to hug him.
Oh yeah,
He
Tony
he
hugs
did
are second to none.
Yeah, but I mean that's who this guy is, and I think that's why I wanted people to see that's why he's successful, because people respond to him. Sellers, realtors, and Tony has a way, and it's not a manipulation. Tony cares so much about you that you are part of his family right now. He'll do anything for you, and you just pick that stuff up. And so he probably gets more referrals. When there was agents that had properties, he was the number one person where he was competing against him. I think I'd have moved.
Yeah, seriously.
Because he's loved and for a good reason. So, well, good. I'm glad to know both of those guys impacted your life. Mike Cantu did not enjoy speaking in the beginning at all. We had a lunch. I don't know if you know this. He was going to speak at a Jack Miller event, and he said, I would pay you $5,000 to take my spot, but I can't do that. So he came to lunch with his handwritten talk. I said, Mike, you don't need to read this. You know the business inside and out. Yeah. Tell one of your stories so you can relax. And he calls me after he gets done to a standing ovation. He calls me, he says, now I see why you like to do this.
That's so cool. I mean, I credit to Mike. I don't know exactly why, but my iPhone now will randomly just play "Don't Get Voted Off" a Real Estate Island, and I mean it. Like I'll be at the gym or something will happen where I'll plug in or unplug, and it defaults to that. And I still don't know why, but every time it does, I listen and I'm like, wow, this is so relevant. All this is so relevant to today. And it's just it's timeless. It really is.
When Tony first spoke, he was one of about 5 speakers, and every one of the speakers was hand selected for a very specific skill set that they had. Jack Fullerton, he bought every house by roaming around a neighborhood and knocking on a door, and just saying, hi, anybody wants to sell. Another gentleman was a door knocker of foreclosures, and everybody had their niche. And I thought, boy, let's assemble all these guys, because if I'm in the audience, I'm going to say I resonate with one of their methodologies, let's say. And so that was fun. What hats do you wear in the real estate world besides investors, if you do?
So it's changed over the years. I started, like I had mentioned, buying a property. So I would call that the investor hat. And then right. I believe in 2012, I got my real estate license here in California. And at the time I wasn't living in San Diego, and I knew I needed to get back to San Diego. I had gone to college here, and I just loved this place and knew I needed to get back. But the price points were a little higher than what I was used to, so I needed another way.
Yeah, in Barstow. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I had my license, and I started at that point just being a realtor out here, and I was finding deals for other investors, and then ended up partnering with one, and a great one, and her and her dad, and I had a great time with them, and so that was the hat. That's kind of gone away a little bit. I still every now and then will list a house for sale, whether it's one of my own properties or it's a friend or a family member or something like that. I don't enjoy the agent side of the business. I just really don't. I really enjoy, my favorite part of this is the hunt for a new property. I love that component of this. And now I'm slowly starting to get into the development side, whereas in San Diego has some pretty new and lax legislation in terms of building density. And I know ADUs are not necessarily your favorite thing, but they can be extremely lucrative here in San Diego. And so I love that component, and mainly also just, I still love flipping houses. I really enjoy it. Before we got on the air, I was like geeking out about this like kitchen in this multi-million-dollar home we're doing. And I love that component of this business. And I don't think I'll ever get away from that. But, I have a rental portfolio that I don't personally manage. I have property management that handles it. I do have 2 Airbnbs, and that's handled between my assistant and I. We've got that kind of on autopilot. And also I'm the president of the NSDREI, which is, a real estate investment club in North San Diego, which you've been a part of for a couple decades now.
Very, very cool club. What percentage of your deals would you say come from referrals versus just initiating a search out of the MLS? And mailers? What percentage you would say referrals, MLS efforts, and mailers?
Yeah, so just if I base it off 2023, I can tell you almost exactly what our numbers were. So we were like 60%, 60% referrals from agents and other wholesalers or whoever we've worked with for years. We're about 30% mailers, and another 10% kind of MLS searches or just kind of other ways. But for us, it's mostly people that we know, like, and trust, and they like us and know we'll close, and direct mail. And we're doubling the amount of direct mail that we did last year based off of the return we got last year. We feel that there's some really good opportunity for it this year. And for those listening, I can tell you some of the numbers. So let me pull up my spreadsheet here. But for mail, you're lucky if you get a 1% response rate. And if you do, you're doing pretty good. And if you get higher than that, you're doing really good. We've had certain campaigns get as high. Let's see, in 2023, the highest campaign response rate we got was 1.39%. The lowest one we got was 0.62%, and that'll depend on your list and your message. But, for the most part, we had we spent $56,000 on mailing last year, and that turned into 500,000 or so in 300,000 in revenue. So you can do the math. That's a pretty good ROI.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to double that this year. We'll do a little over 100,000 in mailers, mailer spend. And I don't think the ROI will double, but the way I understand marketing, and it's not that high of a level, but it'll decrease about 10%. So, but for me, I'll take those numbers all day.
So what's the criteria of who you mail to? Are you looking at a house in an area that could add square footage or an ADU, or?
So what? It changes if we're doing, like right now we're doing 6,000 a month, and we do a little more targeted mailing, and we do a little more quality. And so 6,000 a month can be nothing to somebody, or that can be a lot to someone else, depending on the style you're using and how it goes. But Bruce, we'll experiment with all kinds of different lists, right? So we'll do out of state owners, we'll do certain neighborhoods. If there's an area, like we just did one a couple months ago that was based off of zoning, and this very specific zoning that I wanted in certain neighborhoods, because I know the density laws in that zone are
perfect, yeah,
beneficial. And we'll play. Well, we start with Property Radar. That's how we do all of our lists. We start with Property Radar, and we just start thinking about, all right, what could make sense this time. We just sent one out to age dependent criteria, so 65 or older that have certain criteria in the size house that we're looking for, etc. And And really what we found is there's no magic list, there's no magic button or like secret letter or anything. This is consistency. If you do this every month and you follow up, like you will get deals from this. And there isn't some like magic pill to swallow or like some secret data I can give you to go and figure it out. We've done some things where we've hired like college kids to drive around, and they'll take the Property Radar app with them. And I'll drive with them initially and say, hey, let's go drive through a neighborhood. I'll identify what I think looks like a distressed property in terms of maybe maintenance it needs, or this house probably the inside's indicative typically of the outside, we found in most situations. And so we'll do some driving for dollars that way. We'll pay some people to do it and then upload it into Property Radar, so it's already there for us, and then we can just easily mail to them. So that's how we choose. It's there's a lot of different criteria.
When somebody calls, is somebody always live answering the phone on your side?
Yes. So the way it used to work is on the bottom of our letter, and we still do this. So the bottom of our letter has a phone number. Each campaign has a unique phone number. So let's say we're targeting out-of-state owners with 30% plus equity, that a primary owner is 70 years of age or older, something like that, right? So the unique phone number will then go through what we use is called call rail, and it has a whisper message before the phone answers. So my phone will ring and it'll say out of state owner 70 years plus, something like that. It'll whisper to you quickly before it connects the call, so you know which hat to put on in terms of which campaign this is, so you know
Perfect.
more or less how to talk to the seller.
Have you ever mailed, instead of letters, just offers?
I have never done that. I put a amount of money I'm looking to spend in my mailer, and I've gotten all kinds of interesting responses to that. Like, how dare you offer $600,000 for my $2 million house? And I'm like, well, miss, this is not an offer. This is just, amount, more or less how much money I'm looking to spend. But if I'm sure I can find more money if I have to, that kind of a thing. But no, I haven't done it. I know people that do it. I actually get some of those sent to, the rentals that I own. And a guy here in town who's got a pretty large operation is now literally sending checks. Like it looks like a check, like one of those envelopes you get, and it's like
I've done that. Yeah.
See, like you were probably the pioneer for it.
Well, it was interesting. I was always trying to chase down what's next, So we mailed offers with the price. And the first time I did that, I actually bought 10% of the mailer, which was
really
crazy. Yes. Wow. I drove the neighborhood and did all the looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay. And so whatever we sent, I bought 3 houses that was in Moreno Valley.
And so were you actually coming up with a bona fide price, or was it more or less?
Absolutely. That was my offer.
Okay.
That was my offer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I remember one of them. It was interesting. He owned 2 houses, one he lived in and one across the street. And he said to me, because the offer was $35,000 as it was on all the other houses. And we're signing the paperwork on top of his car. And he says to me, it was the same house across the street. He said, just so you know, you couldn't buy that one for a dime less than $80,000, but he signed this one for 35. That was the difference between, he said that about the one that we were at where he lived. The one he lived in had to be $80,000. Over there, he could care less. That was a rental, which always stuck with me. It's like, right. Okay, that's not my house anymore. He'd already written it off. Couldn't wait to get rid of it.
Wow. So yeah, that's a different sentiment about, I guess, your own 4 walls and a roof rather than a rental.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender license 1577, and NMLS license 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the hard money tab.